A phase 3 win for Moderna and Merck has opened the door to personalized neoantigen vaccines. We'll discuss on the BioCentury This Week podcast. We'll also dig into an obesity deal for Genentech and Roche in South Korea, and the White House's pick of a Trump loyalist to lead FDA. It's revived questions of the agency's independence. I'm Jeff Cranmer, executive editor here at BioCentury and your host on the BioCentury podcast. And today I'm joined by Lauren Martz, executive director of Biopharma Intelligence, Paul Bonanos, our news editor and director of Biopharma Intelligence, and Tierney Baum, biotech analyst. Well, first, we have been very, very busy here at BioCentury working on our annual back to school issue. It's out now on biocentury.com, biocenturybacktoschool.com. Each year for 34 years now, our editors go deep on a single trend that will shape industry strategy. This year, our editors examined how to expedite the global race for first-in-human trials and why U.S. sponsors risk falling behind. You can go to biocenturybacktoschool.com to get full access to this report and previous years. That comes with a BioCentury analysis subscription. You can see what a full subscription unlocks, or you can request access by completing the form, and a member of our team will reach out to walk you through the report and the subscription behind it. For my part, I got to write a little bit about what's happening in Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore. Lauren got to write about China, and she went down under to see what's up in Australia, which has really been a trendsetter here. What did you learn, Lauren?
Yeah, well, both of those locations, I think when you're thinking of first in human trials, are incredibly important and are setting standards that other regions are following. So we'll get into this on another podcast. But yeah, when we think of first in human, first healthy volunteer trials, we think of Australia. So we have a story that analyzes what's happening in Australia now and what that country and its regulators can do to stay on top of this first in human business that they've established. And then in China, I think this is top of mind for everyone. So we've looked into the data, and once you get into the stories, you can see how many first in human trials are actually happening in China. But you can also get into some details about how long different parts are taking, where China's sort of having a higher risk tolerance to allow different types of trials to happen, and where some of the China speed that we see is coming from.
Excellent. Really big news out of Moderna last week. Moderna obviously has been a company over the years that's from its stock to its technology has made its mark. One of the biggest IPOs biotech has seen a few years back. mRNA really helped shape the race to come up with a COVID vaccine. Stock has been a little beaten down in the past few years, but wowee, the shares went way up last week after these data. And there's a lot of talk about this, not only a turnaround for Moderna, but opening up a door to really a new treatment paradigm. Tierney, I know you spent a lot of time with the data, thinking about what the data mean for Moderna, but also what it means for patients in more areas than just melanoma, where this win came. What did you learn?
Yeah, so thanks, Jeff. I think, obviously this is a big win for mRNA-based therapies. It's a big win for Moderna, showing that it can find a place for mRNA vaccines outside of infectious disease in general. And, it's really Moderna and Merck bringing the development of a therapy that they've been working on for the better part of the past decade, bringing it to show that personalized vaccines really can meet endpoints in a large phase 3 trial. So the mRNA neoantigen vaccine intismeran autogene was the therapy that met a primary endpoint in its phase 3 trial in melanoma patients as an adjuvant with Keytruda combo in melanoma patients phase 2 to phase 4. So it really showed that it could prevent or delay the recurrence of melanoma. And This was the perfect setting for something like this. This is a setting where you're already removing tumor tissue, which is necessary to create these patient-specific therapies. And so it works very well into the workflow, and it's a good setting for the first indication for this. I think as a new treatment modality, the excitement is there, as shown in the market reaction. There's still a huge number of unanswered questions. Any kind of personalized therapeutic obviously is very resource intensive, so it has to add a certain amount of benefit to warrant that additional burden. Seeing how this will read through to other PD-1 treatable tumors and also non-checkpoint treatable tumors will really show how adoptable the modality is over the long term.
Yeah, Tierney, I think you hit all of the major points there. And just to kind of build on what you mentioned about the PD-1 treatable tumors or PD-1 not treatable tumors, I think that's a really big outstanding question because we'll get into what happened with the stock and how people are valuing this program based on the data that we have, which is very limited. But I think a lot of that value is going to be tied into the fact that the expectation is that you're introducing an entirely new modality that adds on to what we're already treating patients with this stage of solid tumor, which could be a huge opportunity. But melanoma, we know, is one of the most immunogenic, active tumors that there is. So the fact that this worked on top of a PD-1 is incredible. It's what we've been searching for since the PD-1s were launched. But I think it's a huge outstanding question is where else can this apply? So if you look at Moderna's pipeline, it does have a bunch of solid tumor indications. Most of these are places where you are using a PD-1. This is specifically for the adjuvant setting. So, we need tumor tissue at this point. I don't know if that will always be necessary, but potentially there could be limitations for how far this can be effective. And as you mentioned, again, we do not have the actual numbers yet. We know that it met the primary endpoint. There were some other positive pieces of information that we have from Moderna at this time. We don't have the full safety profile. We don't know how much benefit this provides patients, if this is something that will be worth that added manufacturing burden of creating personalized therapies and whatever cost that comes with. Is this going to be something that it will routinely be reimbursed by payers on top of everything else that they're paying for as just a way to delay a cancer that may or may not come back? This trial included patients with melanoma from phase 2B through phase 4. So some of these patients with phase 2B tumors, it did improve the outcomes, but those tumors have not spread yet. So I think there are a lot of unknowns here, whether or not the valuations that investors are seeing at this point will actually be how this is actually valued in the end.
All right. And one thing we did not see was Moderna raising money on the back of this. That sort of surprised me. I mean, pretty big gain in market cap stock. Paul, how big was the stock move?
Well, the first day move was 177%, which is, as you said, kind of a wow moment. It added about $40 billion in market cap, a little more than that, I think. But it's also true that short interest in the company was high. I've seen the term short squeeze around this event. And Moderna wound up giving back about 20% of its value the next day and then bounced again on Friday. Volume has been very high. That persisted through the week and into today's session. It's Monday right now. So, I don't know whether Moderna will strike while the iron's hot and raise some money. Obviously, a lot of biotechs do that when they get a huge stock bump like this. It could be a few different things in play. Maybe they just want to see the valuation settle into some kind of balance before they try to price an offering. Maybe they're gauging what people will pay. Since this was such an extraordinary event, I really don't know. They have years of runway, but a fairly high burn rate. The release said they had 6.9 billion at mid-year in cash, down from 7.5 billion at March 31st. And also apparently just paid out nearly $1 billion to settle some litigation last month. So we'll be watching to see how they handle the situation.
Yeah, well, there is the Rathman rule to keep in mind, of course, named after the biotech founding father, Amgen legend George Rathman. Basically, raise money when you can, always be raising money. So we will see what happens here. If they do a follow-on, it could be quite a large one. We're going to take a quick break now, and we'll come back to talk a little deal making.
This episode of BioCentury This Week is brought to you by the second BioCentury Grand Rounds Europe in Amsterdam, September 23rd to 25th. The second edition of BioCentury Grand Rounds Europe convenes the leaders shaping the future of biopharma. This time we meet in Amsterdam, September 23rd to 25th, gathering academic innovators, biotech CEOs, pharma R&D leaders and investors to debate the translational science that will define the next decade. Grand Rounds Europe focuses on what matters most: breakthrough biology, transformative technologies, and how to make early-stage R&D investable. Grand Rounds is where rigorous science meets real-world execution. Join BioCentury and regional host chairs Forbion and BGV and take a deep dive on translational opportunities in the Benelux region. BioCentury Grand Rounds Europe, where discovery moves toward impact. Register at biocenturygrandrounds.com.
We are back on the BioCentury This Week podcast. Well, so much talk in biotech these days is about China, deals, newcos, innovation coming out of China. But South Korea increasingly is on the radar of Western investors, Western deal makers. We're really seeing some companies punching above their weight coming out of Korea, doing all sorts of risky, innovative things, some blood-brain shuttles. We've written about that before here at BioCentury. Kind of two sets of companies. We have these sort of the hot up-and-coming companies like Aurum, led by S.J. Lee, Alimis, Rhizomics. They've done deals with some large Western companies. And then you have kind of the bread and butter Korean companies that have been around for a little while. And that brings us to Hanmi. They've been around for a while. And today they have a deal with Genentech, of course, a member of the Roche group, and it's an obesity deal, which gets a lot of people excited. Paul, you've been looking at this morning. What did you learn?
Yeah, there wasn't a ton of deal activity this week, but this was an interesting one this morning. So as you know, all the companies that are in the obesity sphere have been looking past GLP-1s, looking for next generation products. And in many cases, one of the priorities is to reduce fat while sparing lean mass. And I was not even, this target was not even on my radar, but Hanmi has this product that has just reached the clinic in the past several months. It's a urocortin 2 analog. It has apparently effects on fat, on appetite, on energy expenditure. And it's in the clinic now. Roche and Hanmi think it can do just what I said, reduce fat while sparing lean muscle mass. So it's a potential combo product. I'm sure that it will be tested as monotherapy as well, but could be a combo product, with other ways of treating obesity, the familiar ones that have reached the market already. Roche, or Genentech, if you like, is paying $190 million up front, US dollars. Milestones could bring the deal's total value to $2.3 billion plus royalties. And it's an area, where Roche has committed to spending and to building an obesity pipeline. They built their pipeline partly through a major acquisition, buying Carmot in late 2023. That was $2.7 billion. They have a GLP-1R product, a combo product targeting GLP-1R and GIPR, and also a myostatin and an amylin product. So this is one more way to diversify the pipeline. And if all goes well, yes, it may be first in class.
Well, thanks for that, Paul. And Hanmi, for those who aren't familiar, around a 50-year-old company, has about 11 marketed products, 25 products in the clinic, and a whole bunch in preclinical testing. And their pipeline really spans from cancer and cardiovascular through the endocrine, metabolic, obesity, GI zone over to hematology, infectious. And they've been active on deals. Did a deal with Eli Lilly, though it's tempting to say, but who hasn't this year? That was a deal for a phase 2 asset, total deal value north of $1 billion. Deals with Organon, deals with Gilead, in the past couple of years. So clearly a company to watch as one of the players in Korea. Okay, let's turn to Washington. Paul and I took a quick look at news out of the White House that a loyalist in Heidi Overton has been nominated to be FDA's next commissioner. This is someone who is expected to continue advancing the MAHA agenda put forth by the HHS Secretary, RFK Jr., and the broader MAGA movement. Paul, any quick thoughts on this? I know you took a quick look last week.
Well, yeah, so I think there are some outstanding questions about FDA's independence from political and ideological influence, and this will not resolve any of them. Heidi Overton, was mentored by Marty Makary, and Marty Makary's tenure in that position was marked by conflicts with the administration, controversial regulatory decisions. There were a handful of very confused companies who said that FDA had been signaling in one direction, and then once Makary was in place, they tacked in another direction and frustrated the companies. So, we feel like during the acting role of Kyle Diamantis as FDA commissioner, he's kind of taken steps to steer the agency back toward a more conventional approach, mending ties with patient advocates. So we don't know if things are going to be more chaotic going forward, maybe. Overton also has been an outspoken opponent of abortion, appears to have embraced the rollback of vaccine requirements consistent with the MAHA approach. We'll know more. We may know more, at least, when she's up for confirmation. So we'll have to see how this plays out.
And no date has been set. She'll, of course, go before HELP. HELP is chaired by Senator Cassidy. Now, Senator Cassidy, of course, ultimately backed RFK Jr.'s nomination as HHS secretary. Cassidy, of course, has a bit of a track record of friction with the White House over vaccine policy. He did delay the confirmation of CDC pick Erica Schwartz over similar concerns, eventually voted yes. I mean, he's already voiced some concerns here. I think the term about her recent comments, Overton's recent comments at a vaccine hearing, was nonsensical. Obvious contrast to the Truth Social posts that she's a rock star. But we'll see what happens. We'll see when this comes before HELP. Midterms around the corner. Not sure if this is one where the White House will want this in the spotlight as the campaigns go into full swing. We'll hear more on this from our colleague Steve Ustin once he's back. And with that, just a quick shout out again to Tierney, who last week interviewed Klaus Romero of CPATH about mapping the first steps towards scaling genetic medicines. CPATH has its 1 to Millions initiative, and that will begin with shared ASO safety data. But CPATH's ambitions extend far beyond rare diseases, and you can learn more about that on our sister podcast, The BioCentury Show. Tierney, again, in conversation with Klaus Romero. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe, give us a like, and we will catch you later this week with a special edition of the BioCentury This Week podcast focused on our back to school issue. Until then, have a good week. Kendall Square Orchestra provides the music for BioCentury's podcast. Special thanks to them and our production engineer, Cole Travis.